Hello, welcome to the February edition of The Parish Line, a production of CGov, the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel, about the events, programs, and policies of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. On this month's program, we'll look at plans to relight the Interstate 10 Calcasieu River Bridge. The Calcasieu Arts and Humanities Council has released funding for area projects thanks to a grant from the police jury, and jurors are starting the process of redistricting now that population numbers have been announced by census officials. First, weather conditions earlier this month had emergency officials concerned about a repeat of the great ice storm of 1997. J.P. Booth tells us that while the destruction didn't materialize, parish emergency officials were able to measure their readiness for a major storm.
While the lake area rebounds from winter weather, Office of Emergency Preparedness Director Dick Grimion tells us how Calcasieu Parish fared.
Last week on Thursday night, we were predicted to have some cold weather where the temperatures are going to be dropping below the freezing mark, possibly causing some freezing rain and icing of bridges and roads in the area. It turned out that that did happen. We took some precautionary measures. The school board closed schools on Thursday and Friday out of an abundance of caution for children riding school buses. They build in a couple of what they call hurricane days during the year, and they were able to use those, so the children won't have to make up those 2 days that we took off. The situation was early in the day on Thursday, the conditions were going to deteriorate, and school buses, as you know, are difficult to handle anyway, much less on ice, so we didn't want to take any chances on that. We recommended to all the government agencies that they close their offices early on Thursday and then again all day on Friday because of the traffic situation. Just around the Lake Charles metro area, there were about 70 accidents on Friday morning between 5:30 and a normal drive time up to about 8:30 in the morning. So we think we avoided a lot of people needlessly being involved in traffic accidents, as well as possibly saving some lives.
Following Governor Jindal's emergency declaration, the police jury declared a state of emergency on February 3rd, and Grimion feels that it was necessary.
The governor did a statewide emergency declaration on Wednesday of last week. That would have been February 2nd. Calcasieu Parish Police Jury took that measure on Thursday, February 3rd, and continuing on.
Second. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Staley and a second by Mr. Guidry to ratify the proclamation of a pending state of emergency. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries.
There are several reasons for putting an emergency declaration in place. One is it suspends some day-to-day laws, and we're able to regulate the ingress and egress into certain areas if need be, as well as clearing the way for any reimbursement should that come down the road sometime. In retrospect, yes, we do think it was necessary. We think that by keeping a lot of people off the road on Friday morning, like I said, we involved at least some unnecessary traffic accidents and maybe some fires or other things that we just didn't account for.
And Dick says he's very pleased with the response of the business community as well as the citizens of the lake area.
We think the business community responded very reasonably. A lot of the businesses closed early on Thursday and I think told their employees to delay coming in on Friday. We think that was the right thing to do. Judging by the traffic on Friday morning, we think our advice to the public was successful. There wasn't that much traffic out. Most of the accidents occurred on the interstate system, and it's unknown whether that was local traffic or just people passing through. But there was definitely a lot of ice on the overpasses and the I10 and 210 bridges. Anytime you do some advice like this, of course, we didn't really recommend that anyone closed except the local governments made that decision. Anytime you have advice like that, people will second guess, was that the right decision? Once we commit to that decision, we're pretty sure that it's necessary. We wouldn't give that advice if we didn't think it was necessary. And so we think overall it was a successful conveyance of the information. The public took that information and like we would like them to do and processed it and use their best judgment.
For the Parish Line, I'm J.P. Booth.
Emergency officials suggest signing up for the Calcashout program to receive free official emergency information. It's available at calcashout.com. The lack of lighting on the Interstate 10 bridge has been an ongoing problem for years. The Calcasieu Parish Police Jury is putting up funds to help the city with a project that will hopefully solve the bridge lighting problem. Here's Jessica Conrad.
The I10 Bridge may be getting a facelift. The bridge, which is a major thoroughfare for daily commuters and interstate travelers, will receive new LED lighting through a pilot program.
The bridge was originally constructed somewhere in the late 50s, which makes it approximately 50 years old. The bridge, it was not believed that the bridge originally had any lighting on it. The parish and the city, as well as the local DOTD district administrator, we'd met with DOTD in Baton Rouge, and we did discuss the project, how to get it moving forward, and it was a good meeting. And at the end of the meeting, it was decided that we would go forward with a pilot program where we would be allowed, or the city would be allowed to install approximately 7 lights, and over maybe a 3-month period, we'll evaluate that to see if the lights were, holding up as we expected, and if that looks good, then they'll be able to proceed forward with implementing the rest of the lighting on the bridge.
The existing lighting structures are attached to the railing of the bridge as opposed to the sturdier, more stable main structure. The railings have proven to be more prone to vibrations, causing the previously used lights to burn out. A new type of light is expected to solve the problem.
We're looking at a different lighting fixture, LED lighting versus the sodium lights, which is believed to be more tolerant to the vibration. The Department of Transportation has asked for some more information about the lighting itself, and that information is going to be provided to them through the city. And if everything looks good, then we'll be able to proceed with the pilot program.
There have been hopes of construction of a new I-10 bridge. Connor says officials have taken that into consideration when approaching new lighting.
The lighting that's going to be provided will be kind of a retrofit of the existing lighting system that's out there now. It's not going to be a brand new lighting system, completely, because of the cost involved of providing a new lighting system may not be, the cost benefit may not be there if we know that we're going to end up tearing the bridge down and replacing it in 10 or 12 years. We would anticipating a lighting system would have at least a life of 25 years, so we're going to lose some of that just because of the fact that the bridge will be torn down earlier than 25 years is what we're anticipating.
While the lights are hoped to provide more comfort to motorists traveling over the I-10 bridge, lighting is not mandated. It's the choice of the local community as to whether a lighting system would be installed. Connor says it's important to install the lights properly so not to create a new hazard.
How that's going to affect the accidents is kind of hard to say, if it's going to be a decrease. I think overall it's going to be beneficial to have the lighting on the bridge. But if it needs to be done properly so that the lighting will enhance the driver's comfort when he's driving over the bridge. And what the department is concerned about is if you have some dark spots between the lights, that you get this strobe effect as you drive up the bridge, going from light to dark, and which could not be beneficial or helpful to the driver. So you have to make sure that the lighting is done properly in order for it to be a benefit.
For the Parish Line, I'm Jessica Conrad.
If all goes well with the pilot program, the city will proceed to light the entire bridge with the new lighting system. You are watching The Parish Line, a production of CGov, the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel, about the events, programs, and policies of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. The police jury began the process of redistricting at their February 3rd meeting. The task of relocating police jury district lines occurs after every U.S. census. Parish Administrator Brian Beam says doing it correctly is difficult, owing to the short amount of time until the next police jury election this fall.
Redistricting is a process that takes place every 10 years throughout the country at the federal level, state, and local. from any governing bodies. And the purpose is to have a roughly equal number of citizens represented within a district. For example, Congress, state legislatures, and in our case, the police jury. So everybody will be doing this after the census, and depending on when those elections are held for those levels, that sets the calendar. And in the case of the police jury, the calendar is very brief this year. So that process has now actually begun since we got the census results in early February.
Official census numbers show Calcasieu Parish grew significantly in the past 10 years, and redistricting will have to reflect where the growth occurred.
Calcasieu had a population of a little over 183,000 in the year 2000, which was the last formal census. We now have 192,700 plus in population. So we've grown by a little over 9,100 people, which is about 5%. So that's a healthy increase, not major, but it's on the positive side. So we now have to take those numbers and draw up police jury districts in time for anybody running for police juror to qualify. So the timeline is very brief. The whole process, not just at our level, but anybody who has to redistrict, is governed by state law and federal law. And there's different parameters, and in a nutshell, there's a handful that are the most important. One being the districts have to be roughly the same number in size. Now, we can go plus or minus 5%, but when you're drawing districts, and there are 15 police jury districts, they're all going to have to be a certain amount. The parish's population of 192,768 means you divide that total by 15, and you're going to have approximately 12,850 people per district. We have the flexibility to go plus or minus 5% for that number for each district. So that's a primary rule we have to follow. And then there are others, such as being contiguous. You can't have these really odd-looking districts that look like what they call gerrymandered for any particular political purposes. So you have to take that into consideration. Another criteria we have to follow, and all entities across the country do, is you cannot delete minority representation. So all of those go into the mix in trying to draw these. So it makes it a challenge to get those right. And it takes some time and a lot of number crunching to come up with a plan that's presented for approval. The goal is to take what was already in place and try to make it work as much as possible. If the new numbers don't fit within the existing districts, and they won't, we know that already, it's called being malapportioned. But you start from where you already are. So we won't wipe the slate clean and draw new districts. We take what we have, the populations that have changed, and move some lines to where it will work. But by and large, try to keep the district intact as much as possible, or districts intact. And we have most jurors that have some rural and some urban and metropolitan areas, and that's so they get a wide range of the services that are represented.
The police jury has approved a timeline and hired a local law firm to act as a consultant for the redistricting process. The timeline includes the opportunity for public input at a special police jury meeting scheduled for March 29th.
The redistricting process has public involvement built in. So in the police jury's case, they recently passed a calendar for the process. February 16th will be the first meeting in which there are some information about how the new numbers fit on the old districts. And following up on that, a plan will be put together that would be presented back to the police jury by late March. And between late March and early April through about April 7th, we would be asking the public for any input. And we'll actually have a public hearing on that, but they can come at any time during that window. So that will be well publicized at the time we get there. The calendar currently approved by the police jury would have them approve a plan by their April 21st meeting. And we would then need to send that plan to the Department of Justice at the federal level for what they call pre-clearance. And that has to do with Voting Rights Act that some of the states have to follow to ensure appropriate minority representation. But that's the reason we have to do this so early this year, to allow them 60 days. If there's any comments or we have to redo any parts of the plan. Ultimately, by August 29th and early September, the people running for police jury and legislature and those types of offices that are elected in 2011 will have to qualify. So all of these districts have to be in place so people know where they're running. So therefore, everything will be completed by late August.
The state legislature has scheduled a series of public input meetings regarding legislative and congressional redistricting. They will meet locally on February 22nd at the Lake Charles Civic Center. The Arts and Humanities Council of Southwest Louisiana oversees a grant program made possible by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, and they recently announced this year's recipients. Molly Morgan has the story.
Louisiana arts and cultural community here in the southwest region of the state has benefited from a grant program started by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury back in 2008. Special Programs and Cultural Affairs Coordinator Jason Barnes explains.
3 years ago, we recognized that, there was a need to sort of support up-and-coming nonprofit organizations that were more based in the cultural arts world. And we presented the idea to the police jury to start a grant program. This really isn't something new for this area, for the state. Many municipalities actually have their own cultural grant. But what was interesting was that the parish has so many organizations outside of the city limits, especially outside of Lake Charles, that could really benefit from some grant funding. And the only option that they had at the time, before we started this program, was state funding and a small grant, marketing grant from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we instituted a cultural grant 3 years ago, and it's basically a $50,000 grant that goes out and is spread out amongst nonprofit organizations who are chosen based on the projects that they apply for.
The funding for this grant program comes from an interesting source.
The funds are actually drawn from the gaming gaming revenue fund, and it's nice that it's that way, because a lot of people look at the gaming fund as being something just for road construction and all that, but it's been proven that culture and the arts world and everything improves quality of life. That phrase, quality of life, is used quite a bit, but it's a true statement. It really does impact a community in a positive way, and it also affects the economy. Most people don't realize that, when you go to a cultural event, most of the time you don't just go there and go back home. You either fill up the car with gas, you go to a restaurant. It adds to our tax base and our community in that way as well. So it is a proven positive.
It's simple and easy to apply for, and organizations can reapply each year.
We made it very simplistic. We did not make it too complicated. The grant is really intended for people who may not have a lot of grant writing experience. So what we have in place is really you can apply for it once a year, and even if you get a grant in that particular year, the next year you can reapply again for another project-based grant. This is important because sometimes you can actually apply for a grant that is for operational support, which is like to help pay for salaries or whatever. That's not the case here. It's basically if you want to have a production or if you want to have an exhibit or something, it's projects.
There are several new and interesting recipients for this year's grant.
This year we have a pretty good mixed bag of cultural events and programs, projects. We have, for the first time, we have a sci-fi convention who had applied for some grant funding, and they're going to get some funding from us for their event that I think takes place this summer. We have the dancing classrooms. We have some Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with the Lake Charles Civic Ballet. But, we also have new people like the Iowa Rabbit Festival. They had never applied before. I believe it's their 25th anniversary, and they actually received a full grant amount of $5,000. And so we're really excited, and that sort of proves that the cultural grant is doing what it's supposed to do.
The Arts and Humanities Council of Southwest Louisiana administers different kinds of grants from state and local entities.
Since 2009, we've been administering $50,000 annually on behalf of the police jury, and it's available to any organization domiciled in Calcasieu Parish. who is in good standing with the Secretary of State's office, with the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, and who's also in good legal compliance with all business practices in Southwest Louisiana.
12 organizations benefited, with even more applying after only 3 years of existence.
The first year we had 12 applications that were submitted. Recent applications have come to us from Lake Charles Civic Ballet, the Bulber Youth Orchestra, DeQuincy Garden Club, Imperial Calcasieu Museum, even as far as the Kiwanis Club of South Lake Charles. Last year we administered grants to Campfire and the Girl Scouts of Louisiana, the Lake Charles Community Band and Lake Charles Symphony, Black Heritage Festival and Gallery, Louisiana Corals Foundation, and a variety of elementary schools. There are a number of other organizations that we've administered grants to, but it's hard to mention all of them.
The application process is fairly simple.
In January, the applications are due. We make duplicate copies of those, assemble in binders, and we select 5 panelists from across the state of Louisiana with varying art backgrounds and varying community cultural involvement. Then the last day of January, usually those panelists sit down, they review them together. We go through each application one by one. I want to guarantee that these applications are reviewed in great detail by a number of eyes, and they're scored. Those applications with the highest scores usually received full funding, and applications with lesser than par scores receive a lesser amount than they've asked for, but usually they do receive something if funding allows.
During the scoring process, organizations can receive bonus points.
An organization applies for a project, and in their organization's budget they list marketing as one endeavor. Well, if they use local companies domiciled in Southwest Louisiana to produce their marketing materials, to put them on radio and TV spots in Southwest Louisiana, then they'll achieve bonus points for that. The idea behind that was that local companies, local entrepreneurs would be supported through the police jury's grant.
If you would like to find out more about the Arts Council's mini grant programs, visit their website at www.artsandhumanitiesswla.org or call 337-439-2787. For the Parish Line, I'm Molly Morgan.
In 3 years, the Arts and Humanities Council has distributed $127,500 to over 26 organizations throughout Calcasieu Parish. The Calcasieu Medical Reserve Corps joined area agencies to promote their Safe and Healthy Me program for children in Calcasieu Parish during Safety Town. Margaret Higgins has the details.
The Calcasieu Medical Reserve Corps, along with the Safety Council of Southwest Louisiana and other area agencies, presented their annual Safety Town. CMRC Coordinator Angela Jewett explains.
Safety Town is it's a conglomeration of a lot of different agencies through the Safety Council that come together once a year to put on Safety Town. Our part of the event is called Safe and Healthy Me. And Safe and Healthy Me is where we put together like a little mini clinic, and we do dental checks, eye vision, hearing, do blood pressure, pulse, height, weight, and we send all this information home to the parents, a checklist of the things that we've done with their children.
Some children were actually taught how to ride a bicycle. CMRC volunteer Craig Ryan tells us more.
They were from 8 to 10 years old. They had never been on a bicycle before, and we had to teach them from day one, from the ground up, how to make a bicycle work and how you perform on a bicycle, what the hand signals were, what signals to look out for in the community, what to look out for in the community, some of the hazards that were around.
For the average child, blood pressure is not a problem, but for some it could be.
Some of the children have never had a check before, and there are some medical problems there. Our blood pressure in our children, we always like for it to be under the diastolic, under 100, and the systolic below 50. And there were several children that we did recheck them, because when they came in they were anxious and wanted to know what was going on, so their blood pressure was up some, but when we rechecked it, it was down a little bit, but it still merited them seeing their medical physician, and we asked that the parents would be notified of this and that they would let their doctor or someone know about it so they could be followed and have great health checks.
The CMRC is known for assisting in evacuations and community response. This year, volunteers actually used their training in a real-time shelter-in-place.
Tuesday, which was about our first day of getting the children there, we had some weather come in that was expected, but we really didn't realize it was going to get that bad. And where we were located for our part of the event, we were on the northwest side of the Civic Center, which facing the lake, it's all glass.
It was pretty much a snap decision because when we looked up and saw the weather coming in and how bad it was with the level of the winds, we just decided to go ahead and try to do what we could and get the kids out of harm's way.
We were actually able to get back on schedule and start back with the same classes that we had. We missed a break, but we were able to get the kids back into the same schedule, so they would be able to go to all the stations and be able to do everything that Safety Town had available for them to do that day.
To make an event such as Safety Town a success, the Calcasieu Medical Reserve Corps relies heavily on their volunteers.
The day before it starts, you have the whole setup process, and like I said, this is my first time, so I was really learning and excited about it, and I hope they keep doing it. And more people, more schools need to be aware of it because the children really need it. They really enjoyed it. I had a good time.
It's a great experience, and I'd recommend, working with us at any event because it's been a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed this, and I didn't know that we were doing such great things in our community for our children, and it's such a needed something that they need because they need the experience and they need health checks, and some of them had not been able to get this. So through this program, we were able to service them with that, and I think that was very great for them, and they enjoyed it, and just to see the smiles on their faces and the activity of the children interacting with all of the other children made it really great for them, and I think they enjoyed it as well as I did, and I think I got more out of them than they did.
For the Parish Line, I'm Margaret Higgins.
Every child who participated in this year's Safety Town received a free bicycle helmet. That's the Parish Line for February. Thanks for tuning in. And if you'd like details on any of the stories on this month's program, or to watch the Parish Line on the web, go to cppj.net.